I want to welcome you all so much to Lipedema Foundation's first patient panel that we have done for Lipedema Awareness Month. This year, we are focusing on lifting the stigma. And one of the ways that we are doing that is by sharing patient stories that spotlight the voices that matter, and that is the patients that are living with this disorder. So we are incredibly honored to have a panel of people that are living with lipedema that have graciously offered to share their stories. My name is Casey Grosvenor. I'm with Lipedema Foundation, and I too do have lipedema. So I understand the stories and realize the value in sharing the stories so we can lift the stigma and we can get that compassionate care for people that need it. So I am thrilled to welcome each of our panelists today. We're going to go through and do some introductions, and then we're going to start to delve into some questions about the lived experience with lipedema. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over. We'll start with you, Anna. If you can give us just a little bit of introduction, and then you may pick the next person, and we'll go till we've got everyone.
Oh, such a pressure. But my name is Anna O'Brien. I am a content creator, and then I also run a podcast called The Medical Detectives, which helps highlight and spotlight rare illnesses that predominantly affect women, raise awareness, and help women learn how to advocate at the doctor's office. So I've taken my own journey with lipedema and kind of turned it into something that can help other people who are facing other conditions where they might be kind of gaslit or misunderstood at the doctor's office, and help to advocate for just in general women receiving better care at the doctor's office. So those are my two big passions. I'm a creator first, but then also really medical detectives is where my heart is right now, because I feel like my own journey, yes, is centered in lipedema, but I think it's a journey that a lot of people have. And I think the struggles that we face as lippy women are not alone to just women with lipedema. I think it goes across many different illnesses. So I want to help inspire people to get the care that they deserve.
It's great.
I'm going to go with you, Lip Lady Fab.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Anna. Hi, everyone. My name is Crystal Willis at Lit Lady Fab, and I'm a lipedema joy and confidence advocate. So I really just focus on living life and choosing joy over fear and allowing my life to be an example for other women with lipedema. I found out that I had lipedema in my late 20s, but since then I've just embraced, who I am. And so I'm also a certified master transformational life coach. So I help women unpack their purpose and reinvent themselves and beat overwhelm and things like that. I am a 20-year marketing and PR expert in the entertainment field, music, TV, and film. So it means a lot of moving around, a lot of walking, a lot of red carpets and things, but I'm doing it. I'm making it look easy, although it's not. So I'm excited to jump into all of that today. And I'm also located in Dallas, Texas, but I spent most of my adulthood in LA, so I'm a Cali girl. So I'm going to hand it over to the other Crystal at CFIT Revolution.
Thank you, Crystal. It's nice to meet you, all of you. Thank you very much for having me today, Casey and the Lipedema Foundation. I am CFIT Revolution. Everybody knows me as the workout queen, so that is what I love. I love my workouts. Boxing is one of my favorite sports, so yeah, I try to check my hands to make sure they still look girly from time to time. My actual career for the past 25 years, Crystal, you'll be able to do this with me. I am a casting director for TV and film. And I am a three-time Team Emmy winning casting director, which I love. And I don't brag about it, but I love being able to help those who are trying to get into the field do the same thing. So my sister and I now have a startup tech company called Fresh Meet You, where we help creative freelancers understand the actual business behind freelancing. So outside of that, I am just a workoutaholic and trying to help our young adults get into the freelance world. So I'm going to pass it to the person under me, and that's Karina.
Thank you, Crystal. Hi, everybody. My name is Karina Johannesson. I am, well, first and foremost, I'm a wife, a parent of three teenagers, but I'm also a nurse. And so to have a lippy diagnosis in my world was kind of earth-shattering because I was like, what is this? I've more recently started using the handles and tags to try to help educate other people. Um, I do have a lot of background in emergency medicine, pediatrics, occupational health, and currently working within infectious diseases. I'm very excited about this journey. I am also vice president of the American Lipedema Association, which for anybody who has not heard of that, please come join us. We are putting together a patient forward organization to be a larger voice to try to get change within our country to have lipedema covered by insurance better as well. And I will pass it on to, please forgive me if I mispronounce it. Is it Sharmila or Sharmila?
Carmela.
Sharmila.
Good afternoon. Yes, because it's about that time, my time. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm really excited about being here and having the opportunity to speak about this. My name is Sharmela Chrisman. I'm located in Chicago, Illinois. I'm 45, a wife and mom. My oldest just graduated college last week. So I'm super excited about that. I am a two-time master life coach. I have 12 specialty certifications, everything from workshop facilitation to employee performance coaching, career coaching. And I'm the one that's the jack of all trades. I'm a former vet tech. So I have that depth of healthcare experience with me, who kind of pivoted back into healthcare with my coaching. I assist other women that tend to find me because I hashtag with lipedema a lot and I share my story as well. I help other women find the resources that they need. I'm the one that kind of gives people their time back because I know the weight of how mentally draining that it is trying to be online and making phone calls and hunting for, care, hunting for support. And so I will send people to other people's profiles if they've never heard of it. Like Anna, I follow you. I'm familiar with you. I send people to different people. Person is sharing their story. That person, to try to share how to advocate and just create kind of a little network so that people can not feel like they're alone in this. I love working with people and kind of pushing people forward, and that's the goal, especially making sure that not just people are finding out about women with lipedema, but women of color that have lipedema. Because if other women from other ethnic backgrounds and white women, Spanish women, if you all are struggling to get a diagnosis with the level of prejudice and bias that's already in place in medicine, women of color are not being diagnosed at all. So my job, I feel like, is to kind of advocate for that and push that further out there because lots of doctors, even here in Chicago, haven't heard of it. So yeah.
Well, that fantastic introductions from everyone. One thing I have found consistent since I was diagnosed 4 years ago is realizing the resilience of the people in this community and the incredible things that people are accomplishing outside of the diagnosis. I mean, the creativity and the drive and the success that each of you are experiencing in your professional endeavors while you are managing a chronic condition that is really difficult to live with. I applaud all of you, and we have at Lipedema Foundation been watching your social media and the things that each of you are out doing to build awareness. That is why you are here today, and we are just so thrilled for you to be sharing your stories and your talents. We are going to shift into talking a little bit more about your journey with lipedema now, but I just want to thank you all so much for the amazing breadth of experience that each of you are bringing to the table. It is just wonderful to have all of you. So what we are going to move into next is talking a little bit about your lived experience with lipedema. And what we want to dig into is a little bit more about how long it took you to receive a diagnosis and what kind of barriers you faced along the way. So, Sharmela, I know you just finished your introduction, but we'll shift to you first. Can you talk to us a little bit about what your diagnosis journey was like with lipedema?
Um, I got diagnosed 2-ish years ago. Um, and that came on the heels of an evaluation from Dr. Amron in California. Um, because I started digging and looking for somebody to help online and finding different websites and was kind of overwhelmed with all the information. Um, and I found him online, and I had apparently been showing signs of it since high school. When I look back at those pictures and I see the little cuff at the bottom of my leg, I'm like, oh, it was there even then, and I had no clue. And I have fibromyalgia. My health has been difficult. I'm 45, but I had a stroke at age 32. They still don't know where it came from. It should have killed me I get massive hormonally triggered migraine headaches that can cause me to black out if they get bad enough, and then fibromyalgia on top of all that. So over the years, it's been rocky. And then got married, left Atlanta, moved here to Chicago 10 days before the pandemic shut the city down. We had just got here, and then everything got shut down. And then I started getting sicker. And I was like, we started watching. My husband is actually a personal trainer for almost 20 years and a former athlete. So I ended up with the right partner to kind of undergird me and support me on this journey. And we started noticing that my legs were getting bigger. And we were like, this is weird. Like, we've never seen this. And it wasn't swelling, it wasn't going all the way down to the feet. I started being in more pain. I started bruising even more easily. And I was like, and it was making me self conscious about my eating to the point where, and I'll never forget this. We were in our apartment at that time and we ate, and he took my plate into the kitchen and he turned around and came back and was like, I need you to look at your plate. And I just was confused for a moment. He was like, look at your plate. He said, it's not you. Your appetite is tiny. You're not like, I need you to know that this is not you. And it really, we started looking for doctors. And when I tell you, every doctor fat shamed me, every doctor, it was getting that diagnosis was one of the most triggering things that I've ever had to experience, because every doctor from every specialty, man or woman, fat shamed me. I went to a particular doctor, and this video is actually up underneath my TikTok. It may be on Instagram too, where I ended up leaving her office in tears because in the appointment when she came in, I said, I'm a little anxious because I've been fat shamed a lot by doctors and I'm trying to find out what's going on. And she fat shamed me. Are you keeping a walking journal? Are you, what are your habits like? This could just be COVID weight. I was like, and I burst into tears and ended up running out of the office in tears. And I switched hospital systems after that. Certain cities have like, 4 or 5. I switched hospital systems and went to a vascular doctor. And she looked at my legs and she was like, this looks like lipedema. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, she said, this looks like lipedema. This is showing up on both sides. She said, we're going to run a test so that I can see if your lymphatic system is intact. And she was like, if your lymphatic system is intact and there's not, anything going on, then it's lipedema. And I don't know where to point you from there, but I do know. So I had a lymphoscintigraphy done. And I don't know if anybody's familiar with the lymphedema side of things, but had she warned me, I would not have had that test done. It was necessary, but she did not warn me going into it. You have to have injections in between your toes. 2 injections in both feet in between your toes. And that video is on my Instagram. I have it pinned, like when that test was being done. And I'm like trembling laying there as they're doing this. And they have to inject a fluid into your lymphatic system through that area. And then they scan your body to see as the fluid moves through. And my lymphatic system was fine. And she was like, you have lipedema. And so we're just Googling and trying to figure out what's going on. And it just took a really long time, and just dealing with medical providers that some of them would even be like, oh, I've kind of heard a little about that, but you're still fat, and you still like wouldn't pivot into, maybe I should educate myself, maybe let's explore this further. They would it to be like, I've kind of heard about it, and then immediately pivot into you're fat and you need to walk more and eat less. And so it took a long time. Had somebody really cared, it makes me wonder if I wouldn't be suffering the way that I am now
Yep.
had I gotten a 2-year head start.
Yeah.
So it's, it was rough getting to it, but I took lemons, very tart lemons, and tried to make lemonade out of it. Like my husband and I started doing this thing called Move 365, and I created little banners on Canva for each of the days. And for a year straight, every day, no matter how much pain I was in, my husband and I would get up and dance. It started with just me, but then like he would be in the videos, my son, my dog. And for a year straight, every day we would dance together and we would post it on social media. And I would put the link to, lipedema information like on it and in the comments and everything to just try to spread some awareness about it. And here we are, like still, fighting to get some help. But this lemonade is a little bit more bitter than I would than I would like. I do love sugary things. But I just take it one day at a time. And I check my other phone. I thought I was following Anna. I need to make sure that I am. But like seeing her really like fighting and fighting and fighting and fight. Like there were days that I couldn't get out of the bed and I was watching Anna's videos. There were days that it was painful and achy to take a shower and I was watching Anna's videos. Like, so it's crazy. I didn't even realize that she would be, I didn't even realize that she would be here. But watching her has given me the courage to keep going. Oh, and I'll end with that before I'm like up in a pool of tears over here.
So we are so glad that you did get that lemonade, and we're so glad you are here sharing your story for others to hear that, because it really does normalize the stigma that so many of us have lived with. Crystal, CFIT Revolution, why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey to a diagnosis?
Sure. First, I have to say, Shamela, girl, we are here for you and are cheering for you. And just, you should have told us that we needed some tissues, Casey, because for real, girl, okay. Yeah, you got them over there, but can you throw them to Maryland, please? So, I probably, like most of you, have probably had lipedema for many, many years, but I did not get diagnosed until 2018. As a matter of fact, in 2011, I started a weight loss journey in Monaco. One of my doctors, who was the head director of the Discovery Channel, she was leaving to move to France, and she said, "Crystal, why don't you come to France and let's do your weight loss journey there? The goal is to lose 100 pounds in a year, and we can then also talk to other women, about it in France, Italy, and Spain about their weight loss issues, or trying to lose weight and the psychological parts of all of this." So I said, okay, let's make this happen. And we went there and we took two producers from the Learning Channel so that we can make this a TV show. And I lost the 100 pounds. I lost 117, as a matter of fact, in less than a year. And I became a certified personal trainer myself because I really wanted to just move forward. I was so in love with fitness. And I noticed about maybe 3 years after that I really started gaining my weight back. And I could not understand why I was gaining the weight back. I started going to different doctors. And I had so many different tests done. I know you all can relate. I've been poked and prodded and been in sleep machines and been in machines that I didn't even know existed. And it wasn't until one of my doctors suggested that I go to a doctor that would perform a gastric bypass. And that was the one thing that I fought. I said I would always eat right and exercise. I'm not doing any surgeries. That was just not happening. But I went on to this doctor, and fortunately, she was not trying to talk to me about getting a gastric bypass surgery. She was trying to find out specifically more about what was going on with me and my body and my eating habits, because at that point I was eating less than 1,000 calories a day. And I still am today, because I found out that I only burn 855 calories. So I know if I eat more, then I'll start gaining. And she said, I may have a friend who is a specialist that may be able to help you, because I think I know what this is, but I'm not sure. This is 2018. And I go into this doctor's office here in Maryland at Johns Hopkins. And there just happened to be a nurse who understands lymphedema, but she also understood lipedema. And when I walked in and started explaining my situation, she looked directly down at my legs and she said, "Come have a seat and let me explain it to you." And while she's trying to explain things to me, she takes out this wrap and she starts wrapping my legs. And I'm like, what is she doing? What are you doing? And she starts explaining lipedema to me and what it is at that time in 2018. And I could not wrap my head around what she was explaining to me. That was probably one of the hardest things. I'm like, but I'm a trainer and I eat right and I exercise. What are you talking about? That I'm just going to be fat? And she said, "I don't want you to take it that way, but technically, yes." And she said, "This wrap that I'm doing on your legs, I can't even begin to tell you how uncomfortable it was walking out of this office." She said, "You're going to have to do this every day until you get compressions. And sometimes you may have to do it past that." And to be this person who just threw on some tights and threw on socks and tennis shoes and, didn't have to worry about getting into a compression machine or putting on compressions every day and trying to work around what was going on with my body, it really shocked me. And I'm 54, and finding this out at that time at 2018, when I am doing a lot of traveling, I used to live in LA and New York, and I used to travel on the road 300 days a year. And I had to stop a lot of that traveling when this started occurring because I would swell so bad sitting on a plane. And that was probably one of the most uncomfortable situations that I've ever had to deal with, thinking that maybe it was something that I was eating or I'm not drinking enough water, I'm not being hydrated. So even though the specialist was able to diagnose me with this, she really was not able to tell me the things that I really needed to do to embrace the lipedema and try to help keep it under control outside of rapping. So as I started explaining more on social media, that's how I got connected with Patty Cornett. And she was the one, she was the one who brought me to the lipedema area. And I'm sorry, I miss my girl. Um, but she was the one who brought me into the lipedema community and got me really involved in understanding what lipedema was, because her brain, oh my gosh, she was the research queen. And she was the one who told me so much about lipedema and got myself educated enough where I could then start explaining things to the doctors. And that sounds crazy. We as patients have to explain things to doctors, nurses, and stop being shamed about going into them and trying to get help. And I think that's what broke my heart the most, was that I had to be the doctor for them.
Yes.
And in a way, we're still doing that today. So yeah, that's my story. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think Patty Cornute had such an incredible impact on so many thousands of us across the community. Crystal, I became aware of your work through the lives that you and Patty did, watching them over the years of my diagnosis. That is how I met you over time. And her all or something approach has left an indelible mark on the lipedema community. And we all join with you in sorrow. I know she was very close to you, and I am so sorry for your loss and for our loss as a community. She was incredible. Anna, I have had a chance to listen to your diagnosis story on your podcast, which I thought was really fascinating. But why don't you tell us a little bit about your lipedema journey here as well?
Yeah, I'll tell you guys the short version of it because we got lots to hear from lots of amazing people, and I don't want to take the microphone for too long. But my story is, I think a story it's a little bit different than what we've heard, but I think it's true for a lot of people. I first found out I had lipedema, not from a doctor, but from someone who emailed me that I believe worked for a lipedema organization. I'm not exactly sure which one because I can't get into the email that this happened in. Otherwise, I would pull this email up. But she emailed and said, I think you have lipedema. And I remember getting that email and being like, no, nope, don't have this. It's a joke. It's a made up condition. Because I had been trained to believe it wasn't a real condition. Being online and being a personality, people like to tell you all the excuses that plus size people used to be plus size. And at that point in time, lipedema was treated as something that was just another excuse. And honestly, to this day, is still used as just another excuse. My story prior to that is I had lost a ton of weight, just like you, Crystal, and suddenly started gaining weight back rapidly in my thighs, my arms, and then eventually my calves and my abdomen. And it didn't make sense. And eventually it took all of my physical activity from me, compared to what I was doing and what I was still active, but it was definitely not like I was before because I was incapable. Ended up finding an amazing doctor who was an obesity specialist who looks at obesity more as like a disease. So lipedema kind of falls in that category as well as like things like DIRCMs and also like metabolism disorders and genetic disorders, and ended up doing a ton of panel work on me. There is a panel, just interesting fodder if anyone wants to know about it, called the Rare Obesity Gene Panel you can have done to see that if you have other genes working, hopefully sometime in the future, that gene will also be recognized. We will be able to isolate enough genes for lipedema to have it recognized on this panel. But that's where they also look for things like Willis and things like that, where kids are born with like voracious appetites or uncontrollable appetites, or in my case, I have two genes related to apoptosis that don't work correctly, which also are probably related to lipedema as well. There's just probably not enough people with lipedema who've taken this genetic testing, right? Which is a big problem with our condition in general, is that there is not a standard lipedema patient database where we can track all of the things that people have and the commonalities. And I can talk a lot about that because I'm a data scientist and it makes me mad all the time. But anyway, back to that. She ended up looking at me. We worked on improving my diet and exercise. We did all these panels. We got all of my blood work, all of my things in a great place, completely stabilized, and I just was not losing weight. And she's like, I don't think this is a you problem. And she's like, I'm going to do something really quick. And she did what's called a Stemmers test. It's a very quick test to see. I had a lot of water in my legs, and a Stemmers test can basically tell if it's lymphedema or not. And if you have a lot of water in your legs and it's not lymphedema, it's likely lipedema. So she was like, I'm pretty certain that this is lipedema. And I felt really dumb because I was like, well, yeah, somebody told me that like a while ago, but I thought that was like a made up thing. And then I started reading more about it. I got educated. I felt real dumb. And then even when I accepted that diagnosis, I didn't really accept it. I did not really accept it. I had my first surgery, still thinking maybe I was a little bit of a scam. Now that comes from all of the fodder that I get exposed to online and all of the things people said to me, really horrible things people said to me through my surgical journey. And it wasn't until past my first surgery, I went to see Dr. Karen Herbst, who is a literal legend. And she ultrasound parts of my body that hadn't been treated. And it was terrifying. My lipedema had progressed to the point that it had strangled veins, and I had pools of blood in my arm, very large pools of blood. And what I thought was a fat roll right here in my arm, like just a little roll developing, was actually a mound of plasma that was just sitting under my arm because it had nowhere to go. And I was like, when Dr. Amaran had said, like, you need to have surgery now, that wasn't a sales tactic. It was literally like my veins were being strangled. If I didn't have surgery, things were about to get really, really bad. And I think, we talk a lot about lipedema in terms of mobility and things like that, which I was definitely losing, but there's a whole venous and just general body functioning that starts to break down that maybe we don't hear about as much. And I think a lot of times that happens to women and they don't even know that that's what's causing it. And so my journey to getting diagnosed is that I lived in a body that I fought against. And I honestly blamed myself for a really long time that it was just my weight, and said, this is how a fat person feels in a body, because that's what I was led to believe.
Yeah.
Being post-surgery now, it is sometimes really hard for me to like accept what I lived with. And the funny thing is, I think one thing that lippy girls are like really good at is faking it. We are all really good at pretending we're fine. And it has been really hard to go back and see all the times I faked it. And honestly, how that was a disservice to myself. Anyway, that's my sad story. Who wants to cry next?
Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that. And that was the short version. I would definitely encourage.
Sorry, it was long. It was long, even though I was trying to be short.
I want people to listen to your full journey on your podcast because it is very fascinating. And every one of these stories has some commonalities, but other things that are outside of that. That is so important. I'm going to throw in a really quick plug because you mentioned regarding database. Lipedema Foundation does have a registry, and we are always looking for people to contribute data that want to be part of the science and want to be part of the research. So I encourage our listeners here, if you haven't joined that registry, join that so we can use your data to help shape the science. If you've started it and haven't had a chance to finish it, go ahead and finish that so we can use your data. We use that data directly to influence the research that we fund for lipedema. So I'll definitely plug that. Crystal, let's take a little listen to your journey and see how your lipedema journey has shaped out.
Thank you, Cassie. I appreciate it. And I love hearing all of your stories. It made me feel seen. I can relate to every bit of it. So I do share my story on my blog, lipladyfab.com, and in my ebook. So I'm going to give you all the abbreviated version. Essentially, I was diagnosed by my sister. My sister and I were like grew up two peas in a pod, but her body type is so different than mine. I suppose the gene or whatever causes lipedema skipped her. Um, So she's seen me struggle over the years, even as a young girl. And that showed up like being picked last in PE for every sport or every game, lagging far behind the kids forced to run laps around the track for PE, being called thunder thighs and all types of names, and not never quite figuring out why. I just seemed to be a little more big boned, as we call it often in the Black community. Um, and and so my mother would take me to the doctor, maybe around 9 years old. I remember visiting a doctor as I was approaching puberty. Things were starting to shift, and it became clear that I maybe needed to lose some weight or something. So obviously the doctor was just like, she needs to be on a diet at 9 years old. She needed to be on a diet. And that, mind you, I carry my weight pretty well. I've never been like a big, wide girl, but I was very insecure about my legs. I was starting to want to hide them at that age. Um, and I did. So that started years of yo-yo dieting, hiding my legs. I would not wear any shorts or short skirts. Um, and so it was around the age of, well, around college, 2021. I started to become very active. I was very intent on losing some weight. I started walking, jogging in the park. I got to the point where I could run a full mile. And so I was pushing my body as hard as I could to lose this weight, but it still was not budging off my legs. And um, so through the course of my early 20s, I went through a lot of trauma and was still healing from childhood trauma. And so my mental health has always been a part of my lipedema journey, a big part of it. And so whether it was just coping mechanisms that then would translate into physical, side effects. It was a night of drinking or overeating, binge eating, and swelling up from sodium or whatever. It just was part of my life. I didn't even really realize what was happening, but I was progressing my disease even faster just by my way of coping. And so around the time, I would say maybe around 25, 27, somewhere in there, I was starting to really feel the effects. I was struggling. There would be nights I would be with excruciating shin splints with my legs elevated in bed, wondering what was wrong with me. Um, or feeling literally whenever I drink, and mind you, I still drink. I'm still working on all of these habits, but I could feel um, it lingering in my cells almost. I can feel it under my skin. Um, and bruising, and if my cat jumped in my lap, it would be excruciating pain. And it's just like the nodules under the skin. I was just like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm just fat. And then my sister hit me up one day and said, I think I figured it out. I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, your legs. I was like, what? She said, yeah, I don't know why, but I went down the rabbit hole and I think I figured it out. I think it's lipedema. And so I started reading what she sent me and I was like, oh my God, I think this is it. And so I had a pretty awesome primary doctor at the time, just a nice guy, would listen. So I printed off the information, I took it into him, and he did listen, although he didn't know anything about it. Um, he did see the value in, me seeing someone for the lymphedema, and that led me to several conservative treatments. And I started researching and understanding more about liposuction, um, and researching surgeons in my area. And I ended up having a consultation with Dr. David Amron, who was also um, seemed to be very skilled and precise and technical with his passion for liposuction. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to go to somebody, I want to go to somebody who seems like very precise and obsessed with perfection. And what I discovered was he was the person that most people would come to for revisions to fix issues that other doctors had created. So I'm like, well, he seems trustworthy. But it was really the liposuction procedure that I felt at that time bought me a good 10 years back. I mean, I feel like my disease was starting to progress so quickly. And me doing the surgery at that time, even though I didn't do a full course of surgeries, I only had one. I felt like it bought me some time. I mean, my mobility was declining fast. I had to use a wheelchair at Disneyland. So I was just so relieved once I healed from that. My pain levels reduced drastically. The smoothness of my skin improved. But for me, it was more so about being able to work out again and start to have an active life, which I actually enjoy, you know. Um, but I still struggle. I'm still human. But what I started to really embrace at that time, as I was also fighting insurance and, you know, appealing the decision, we could talk about that later, but it was just my own loving myself, embracing who I am, and that this is the body I've been given. These are the legs I've been given, the arms I've been given, and it's my job to love them. If I don't love them, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, because if I don't love them, I'm going to go downhill. If I love them, I'll be stable. I can have fun. I can live my life. So I focused on taking care of myself to the best of my ability, but more focused on just really not letting it stop me. I did really resonate with what you said, Anna, about faking it, though. You know, there are days when this disease is the chronicness of it is really tough. And I think you grow over years of just learning not to complain. You know, we learn not to complain. And part of it is that, you know, our experiences are minimized by doctors and people so often that it's like, why say anything anyway? You know, who wants to see all my bruises? You know what I mean? Who wants to like nobody wants to see my legs. I'm gonna put on this swimsuit and go enjoy the pool, but nobody wants to see my legs. You know, they're not pretty.
I want to see your legs.
Yeah, so
I want to see your legs, Crystal. Show those legs.
thank you.
Sorry.
So that is what I was getting at, is that the blessing for me in my diagnosis was finally finding my people,
Yeah.
my tribe.
Yes.
You know, that is what brought the tears. When I went to Dr. Herbst for a full workup and just the experience of being with her and knowing that she knew everything there was to know and saw me and understood and basically validated years of invalidation in one meeting. And I was just like, thank you. I was in tears. So I found my people. I'm so grateful for all the women that I've been able to meet at the conferences or on Instagram or whatever. But y'all are what keep me going. Y'all give me life. And so I have type 4 stage 4 lipolymphedema. So my lymphedema goes from my hips, buttocks, all the way down to the cuff at my ankles. I've had it since puberty. It progressed, and I had a teenage pregnancy at 14. It progressed then, and then gradually also, like I mentioned, in my 20s. It's my arms are also affected. That's what type 4 means. And I do deal daily with lymphedema. So yeah, that's its whole other beast. But just keep fighting the good fight, you know, Casey. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Karina, as a nurse, you have another really interesting perspective. Tell us a little bit more about your journey.
So, hi everybody, and I can so understand where everybody's perspectives are coming from, because I think we've all lived very similar experiences, like so many others. Um, it started around puberty, and I gained about 50 pounds in about 6 to 8 months from when I started my period, and I played 7 sports. I was a very, very active kid. And before I forget, I just want to go to Crystal's point of I wear my weight well.
Yeah.
For anybody who doesn't know, that lipedema tissue weighs about 20 to 30% more than normal adipose tissue. So we wear our weight well because it's heavier. Um, and I think that lends to this, you're just not doing enough. You're just not enough anything. Um, I had been put in a medical weight loss program when I was 13 years old. Um, and I had been adopted, of which at that time I didn't even know. I didn't even find that out until my 30s. So I was never going to look like the person who was raising me because she was this big. Um, so she was always trying to get me to look like her, and that was never going to happen. I wasn't allowed to eat a lot of times in my home because I had to do weekly weigh-ins. Um, it was the focus of my growing up was my weight. Um, I tried everything. And I've been doing this for a very long time of just basically starving. I had done everything under the sun in 2017. I was like, well, opted to have the vertical gastric bypass, thinking, okay, the vertical sleeve, I guess I should say. Um, I lost like 20 pounds because it was never what I was eating. Um, I was completely shamed by the surgeon that I'm just not doing it right and I'm basically lying. Um, and in 2023, in December, I was doom scrolling as we all do. And I remember seeing Anna at that time, and I was just like, girl, get it. I was so envious of somebody being so okay. And just, and I knew that that whole fake it till you make it, like I am on the outside pretending to be happy while most of the time I'm not. I'm just smiling. It is a outward protective mechanism. Um, I have dealt with severe depression, mostly related around this disease. So much to the point, and as a teenager, I did attempt to take my life because I was put to a place where I couldn't take how I looked and all of the judgment and being made fun of. And mind you, when I look back at it, I was like a size 14 and I was harassed mercilessly. Um, and it was really, really hard. So you get older and you keep learning. And I was seeing Anna, and then I saw Allison Jacobs dancing and getting her game on. And it's like, do you have this and this and this? And I'm like, what cockamamie TikTok thing is this now? Having been a nurse for a really long time, I went to the NIH's website to see what lipedema was. I was up until then 5 in the morning. I had to go downstairs on the regular computer because my eyes were bleary looking at my phone. By the end of that, I was in a rage because I had been made to feel less than and a failure by every doctor I had ever encountered, blaming me for something I really genuinely could not control. Um, I then, right then and there, I think that weekend, signed up for the FDRS conference for 2024, and I went, and that's where I met Casey. Um, and I had quite the eye-opening hangover. I was pretty much officially diagnosed by Dr. Herbst there. Within 20 minutes of getting there, I did participate in a Lipedema Foundation study. And it was the very first time I had ever been validated, ever. Um, Not that I'm not okay with how awful the healthcare community is basically towards women, making us all feel less than because of the way our bodies are genetically built is just awful. So for all of us who are learning about it, working with it, and we're all surviving, I know maybe one day there'll be better treatments, but it's part of the reason I joined the American Lipedema Association so I could lobby and help and be there and support and connect with others and provide a format that can help not only me, but all of my new friends too. Thank you.
Karina, that was absolutely beautiful. And each of your stories are so critically important, as are the millions of stories of other women out there. I want to encourage anyone that is watching and listening to this. I don't care how scary it feels. There is a weight that comes off when you share your story. And just quick show of hands, how many of you have had somebody in your life that has been diagnosed as a result of you sharing your own story? Sharing stories is how other women feel validated and how they realize this thing that I've lived with for my entire life is real and it is validating. And we've heard story after story about medical professionals that have either gaslit you or accused you of lying. I read it in story after story. I've personally experienced it. I understand it. I want to shift the focus to, let's talk about amazing providers that finally got it. A couple of you have already mentioned providers. I want to just do a very quick round robin of one provider in your life that finally listened and validated. What did they do differently? And for doctors and clinicians that are watching this, listen to these stories and see how you can make some changes in the way that you're approaching your patient care so these stories don't happen to millions of other women. So Sharmila, I'll start with you for that question. Can you tell me about a provider that has made a difference for you and what they did a little differently?
Um, the doctor that pointed me in the right direction as and I can't remember her first name, but Dr. Dorsey that actually worked at U Chicago. She pointed me in the right direction, but recently, because our insurance switched, so I like keeping all my providers in one place, but the doctors here in Chicago at Northwestern have been like, it's it's like kind of shocking how just on it that they've been. I have a new PCP and she was like throwing, you know, that meme that you see of Leo DiCaprio with the money and you see him. I feel like that's how she's been with referrals for me because she's been like, oh, we're about to try Chinese acupuncture. You're going to the chiropractor. You're doing that. Like Dr. Allison Byrne is her name. By far, she has been the best PCP that I've ever had. She's just like, okay, well, chiropractic, and you're gonna go here, and we're gonna try this, and we're gonna try that. And oh, you want to take a holistic route? Okay, fine, we about to do. But she really, and then I literally had an appointment with her the other day, follow up, and she was like, and I've been doing reading up on lipedema, and I'm like, oh God, if I had her a couple years ago, because she has been so compassionate and so empathetic and so supportive, making sure that I'm getting the help that I need. But Northwestern as a whole actually has a couple of doctors that know about it. So I feel like maybe the education portion they may have kind of started to lean into, but Dr. Byrne has just been on fire. And I'm grateful because now I'm starting to get really pointed in the right direction to get some more of the help that I need because surgery is the goal for me. So
Right.
yeah, she's been incredible.
I heard willing to provide appropriate referrals, willing to learn, researching, compassionate and empathetic. Those are amazing traits. Crystal, CFIT Revolution, have you had a great provider and what did they do differently for you?
I absolutely do have an amazing provider. Her name is Dr. Salvi Rajagopal at Johns Hopkins. She honestly did not know too much about lipedema when I first started seeing her from the gastroenterologist that I was actually talking to first. But she made it a point to do her research. She made it a point to stand up for me and get me any kind of other doctors or other specialists that I may need, any tests that I may need, and any video or research paper that I would send her way, she was on it. And most recently, which I'll probably share more of later on, I am in a trial study right now at Stanford, and she was the doctor to be my referral. She was the one who wrote the letter of recommendation to Dr. Stanley Roxon, and that is one of the major reasons why I was able to get into this trial. She is my biggest cheerleader, and I'm so thankful and blessed.
So again, willing to provide referrals, willing to research, and willing to go a step above. That's incredible. Karina, how about you?
Same thing to echo. I had a great PCP. So when I found out about lipedema, of course, I made an appointment to see him next week or the week after I found out about it, and he listened. And when I printed everything off and he read it right there in front of me, and he's like, I don't doubt that you have this, but I don't know what to do with it exactly. So, but now coming back, his name is Douglas Tran, and he's in Naperville, Illinois, and his NP, Sarah Horvath, have been incredibly supportive. I'm also working with Dr. Wright in St. Louis. And so they've been just a wonderful team. And Sarah, Dr. Tran's NP, has just been astronomical in reading everything and kind of knowing which paths I need to go and making sure I have the testing or whatever it is I need to help support my diagnosis.
That's incredible. Anna, how about you? Have you had a really good provider experience?
Yeah, I've had a lot of really great experiences, and I think those really stem from finding what we always call on the medical detectives the North Star advocate, which is like that one doctor that will go to bat for you, that will find the referrals, that will find the clinical tests, that will find the solutions, even if they don't have the knowledge. And I think that those are a different breed of doctor. And when you find them, they're usually connected with other doctors like that in their specialties. So for example, I had, if you listen to my whole story, I had a misdiagnosis where basically an OBGYN said that she couldn't give me a pap smear because I was too fat. And it turns out later that I actually had a growth in my uterus and I didn't just need a pap smear, I needed a biopsy. And unfortunately, my insurance did not cover the doctor that would do that, but my North Star doctor knew one of the best OBGYNs, had a conversation, made it happen so that I could go see him because he had a feeling that that's what was going on. But again, it's not his specialty, right? But I was showing signs of like bleeding and other things. So obviously my primary care is amazing. And then I want to shout out my obesity specialist, Dr. Deborah Horn. I think that she's done a lot of really amazing things to not only like learn about obesity, but then also like has been helped me find my lipedema specialist by like working through PubMed, finding who's published articles, helping me pick a doctor based on their relevance in the scientific community, which I think is a really interesting way that I've never had a doctor go through it. She's like, I don't know this, but I can find out who does. And then going through people that she knew that had relationships with that doctor as well to like background check and make sure that that was the right doctor. And that is all above and beyond what a normal doctor will do.
Yeah.
And I would say for anyone looking for a doctor, you know, we talk to a lot of women who have challenges. I would say finding your primary care is like dating. If you don't like them, get another doctor. The solution isn't to keep going to them and be frustrated. The solution is to start over. Don't take their referrals. Don't take their suggestions. Go find a primary care that you like to see, because I can guarantee you, you're probably not going to like who they refer you to. So it's easier to just start with that one doctor that you really like and put your trust in them, because it's about philosophy for medical care. And if you are aligned, you're going to see that they're going to be aligned with other people that think just like them. And that would be my one advice, because I feel like we don't talk about it enough on how to find that doctor.
Absolutely.
Also, and use ZocDoc. It'll tell you all the goss you need to know about your doctor.
Love that. Crystal, Crystal, I haven't gotten to you, right?
Right. And it's so hard to pick one because there's been at least three that have been so pivotal for me. But I will start with my primary care doctor because and I just Googled his name now, I know his name. His name is Eric Feit, F-E-I-T. He works at Providence St. Joseph in Burbank. He was my primary care doctor at the time when I printed off those papers, Karina, and brought him into him. And he listened and he said, I don't know what you need, but tell me what you need. He literally was just like, tell me what you need. I said, I need compression and I need massage. And he's like, okay, we can do that. So he literally got me hooked up with, lymphedema therapist, and the insurance was covering my massage. I don't know how he made that happen, but he did. There wasn't even a diagnosis code at the time, but he used the lymphedema code and we got it done. So, also, Dr. David Amron, who, like as I mentioned, was very meticulous at his craft, and he made me feel like I was very safe in very good hands, and I wasn't scared going into the procedure, and he was there for me every step of the way with recovery. And then, as mentioned previously, Dr. Karen Herbst, too, is, viewed as the ultimate expert, but she's also just an incredible woman and human being who has a level of empathy that I don't think I've ever witnessed in a physician. So I would just say empathy, a willingness to listen and validate and just, be an encourager, because when you get a diagnosis, it can feel very deflating, discouraging, or even catastrophic. And so having a doctor that's like, don't worry, we've got you. Like, we're going to figure this out together. Just that reassurance is so comforting.
These answers have been absolutely amazing and fabulous. And there's a few points I will add to that. We get the question constantly at Lipedema Foundation, and I personally, as a patient, get the question all the time, help me find a provider near me that can help diagnose. And my answer to them always is, you do the research and get the resources. For example, we have the Clinician's Guide to Lipedema at lipedema.org. Print that out. Print the brochures or ask for them free on our website. We will ship you a stack of them. You can take a stack of them and leave them everywhere. Find a provider that you love. They don't have to be lipedema aware. Then you educate them. And the common thread I've seen between each of your responses is that you've had providers that were willing to say, I don't actually know what you're dealing with, but I'm willing to learn. And when you can find a medical professional like that, that is willing to learn with you, you are going to have so much better results. The second point that I will mention is Lipedema Foundation does have a provider directory right now, which is primarily OTs and CLTs that help provide the therapies. We are expanding that directory to include diagnosing clinicians, and we need recommendations from the community. So if you know an amazing provider that has been willing to learn and to listen and is willing to help other patients, please let us know who they are so we can reach out to them, or they can directly join our directory. Lipedema.org has all of the details for how to do that. I am just so lifted up and inspired by these stories of great providers, because so often we see the flip side, which is the gaslighting and the anger from the years of misdiagnoses. There are really caring and empathetic providers all across the US and the world that want to help people. And so don't be discouraged if you do get one that is not willing to learn, because there are good ones out there. So thank you all so much for your insights on that. I think in each of your introductions, each of you have touched in this in one way or the other, but I want to talk a little bit about the emotional impact of living with lipedema. We've talked about some of the depression and anxiety and things like that that come alongside, but I want to hone into that question. So, Anna, let's start with you. How emotionally has lipedema affected your quality of life?
That's such a hard question, because in a lot of ways I want to be really angry at my condition,
Mhm.
and I want to talk about
Valid.
how pissed I am that I have it,
Yep.
and all the stuff I've had to go through because of it. On one hand, it's in my life. It's people who didn't believe me, or people who doubted me, or people who, built narratives of who they thought I was behind closed doors because it fit what they thought someone in my body should live like.
Yep.
But then there's this other like layer, which is being a pretty well-known creator, um has brought a level of hate and misunderstanding that I never thought this story in my life was so important to other people that it would lead to the hate that it did lead to. And what it made me realize is, like, as hard as it was to like talk about everything publicly, it needed to be done and continues to need to be done, because there's still so much misunderstanding. And I think a lot of the trauma that I've personally gone through is just like every day I wake up feeling a little bit like a liar. Even though I have a condition, I have a diagnosis, I have very clear signs, I have factual evidence, I have all of these things that tell me this is this disease that is affecting me, I still wake up every day with like this little tiny grain of doubt. And that's something I'm working through, because so many people don't want to believe that this is a real thing, and that we deal with it, and that it affects our lives. And I don't want to believe that when I do something hard, that is actually even harder for me, that it's not a game, that it is literally something I've had to work and build to be even able to do. Instead, they want to tell me it's an excuse, and there's a whole narrative around it. And I would say that there is another thing that I think is understudied, and honestly, I hope we get more insight into, but I think there is a hormonal thing that happens with lipedema, where we get these weird ass cycles where, like, out of nowhere, there's like a weird hormone surge, and all of a sudden you're swelling and you don't know why, and you're sad and you don't know why, and you can't move, and that's the one thing that makes you feel better. At least for me, like, being active is what helps me stay sane. And so then all of a sudden, the thing that you need the most, you can't have. I actually literally just experienced this. We were out here doing some national park tours, and I was all excited to do some hikes, and I got out of the car and I looked at my legs, and they were like doubled in size from when I had gotten in the car in the morning. And that's wearing compression, that's doing the things that I need to do, and I don't have any reason to explain it. We weren't in the car for like a million hours. Just today my body decided to be challenging. And there's a certain frustration that comes with that unpredictability, when you really don't feel like you have any control over what your body is going to do today.
Yeah.
And then there's this other, sorry, I'm talking a lot of emotions today, but I think there's this other part to it too, where, and I think this is where we as a community need to be kinder to each other, where when we struggle, sometimes the response from the community is, well, you didn't do these things right. And let's just be real here. There is no perfect patient of lipedema.
Yeah.
Nobody gets a #1 patient award.
Yeah.
My doctor used to have to tell me all the time, you can't win surgery. You can't win management of lipedema. You can only just do your best. And I was hearing you, Crystal, kind of talk about, like, I'm still a work in progress. Girl, we're gonna be a work in progress till the day we die, because this is not something that anyone can manage perfectly every day. Because
Yeah.
sometimes the choice to manage it correctly is at contrast with your own happiness. And that's what sucks about this condition, is sometimes the choice is, do I be happy, or do I manage this thing effectively? Do I do all of the care techniques I need to do to reduce swelling, or do I have a social life? Because being in a pump, going to MLD, rolling your legs, putting on your compression, all of these things you have to do to manage it, it takes time from living life. And people don't understand that that choice sometimes isn't because I'm being lazy or because I don't want to do it. It's because I have to make the choice. Do I want to live life, or do I want to do, conservative treatments today?
Yeah.
And that is the constant battle that we're going to fight for the rest of our lives. And there needs to be no extra shame in that journey, especially from our own community.
Yes,
Especially.
absolutely. And I think all of us have experienced that in one way or another, that sometimes our harshest critics do come from within our own community, and we have to be better to one another because we are all experiencing life. Sure,
Sorry.
Mela, do you have something else to add, Anna?
No, I was just talk a lot.
Sure, Mela, how about you? How has lipedema affected your life emotionally?
Um, it has my relationship with lipedema is a little complex. Like back in the MySpace days, is complicated. Like
Yeah.
would be
Yep.
like
It's not in your top 8.
like it's definitely not in the top 8. Like, but it pushed me to learn how to be okay with my own company, how to be okay with releasing people around me who do not understand lipedema, and, me missing special events or not having the energy to be able to do particular things, the exhaustion from the fiber and lipedema having this toxic relationship in my body, like, and not having the capacity to do particular things. And like, I've been a life coach for almost 6 years. It'll be 6 years. No, it has been on the 10th. It's been 6 years that I've been a coach, and it pushed me into coaching and being a support system for other women. But the flip side of that is it violently snatched away a level of normalcy. Like, I've worked as a vet tech. I know how to use a slide leash as a tourniquet and hold that with my foot and get blood from the jugular vein of a 150-pound dog with one hand. Like, I'm used to that level of movement, or working in restaurants as a hostess because I love taking care of people. So you're walking, walking, walking on your feet and flitting about like a butterfly, and like going from that to being in a bubble
Yeah.
and me having to gauge and decide what I can do. Am I going to have to spend $25, $30 on a Lyft or an Uber to get to this doctor's appointment? Because I live in Chicago. You can take a bus and a train everywhere. Like, you can get wherever you want to go. But it's like, do I have the capacity to walk to this bus stop and ride and get off and walk some more? Or am I going to have to spend money that I really don't have in order to get around? Because we live in the city, so we chose not to have a vehicle. Like, the strain that it takes and how draining. Like, I tried to start going to medical billing and coding school. I was getting out and getting on the bus, and I was so proud of myself. And then I pivoted because I got a new job opportunity, because they started, Lifetime put a clinic, an integrative medicine clinic, on the inside of their fitness club. So my husband started a new job at Lifetime, and then I started working at Lifetime. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm working in a location. Nobody's fat shaming me. Everybody's really cool. Like, I can work out in peace and everything. And then I get sicker. So I'm sitting here on this panel on medical leave, having to get short-term disability, which runs out the end of July, and then saying, okay, I'm going to have to rebuild my coaching business and do all of this while supporting other people. And it's like, not many people get it. Not many people get it. And then being a wife and a mom and having to pick and choose what I am able to do, like, that gets so draining. You just want to go on a date night. You just want to go on a date night, and just the getting dressed, and like, because I'm in kind of this downturn with it. So being back on pain meds and having muscle relaxers before bed, and like, we went to, my family's in Maryland. My son just graduated from Bowie State, Crystal. My son just graduated from Bowie State. We drove because we couldn't afford to fly. So an 11-hour car ride, and I feel you, like, and sometimes they won't even be long car rides. But one of my best friends sent me some compression boots off Amazon, like, trying to figure out, it's this constant, your brain trying to figure out, what do I have to do to be okay? What do I have to do to be okay? How do I survive today? How do I, stay encouraged? And I think that's why I became, so passionate about helping other women through my coaching and helping them find the resources. Because if I'm gonna be in the house on medical leave, I like I might as well take this time to help women find providers and help them find what it is that they need, because I don't want anybody feeling like this.
Oh,
I don't want anybody feeling like this. There are so many women that are dealing with this. I don't want people feeling like this. I want women to enjoy time with their families. And I want people to. I was scared. I was so scared that I was going to miss my son's graduation. I couldn't sleep. I was so scared. Is this car ride going to be okay? Am I going to make it? It takes such a toll. And I said, I don't want this for other women. So I'm going to take these pain meds and suck it up and get on this, you know what I mean, for these sessions and help them find what they need, because like it makes me feel like, like Pigpen from Charlie Brown with this constant like dust cloud of exhaustion following me. And people just don't, they try to make you feel like the flaky friend. You're missing out on something else. You can't, it's something else. You can't, you know what I mean? They try to, people will guilt trip you and gaslight you. Family will do it. Friends will do it because they just don't understand. I physically cannot do it.
yeah, absolutely. We feel you. We really do feel you, Sharmila. It is a daily struggle, and I think you have done a very good job of capturing the small choices, whether it is what pair of shoes you will be able to fit in today, what pair of pants will you wear for whatever activity you're doing that won't contribute to your condition. It is 1,000 lifestyle choices. It is, will the chair in a restaurant hold me, or is it going to break? Or is the chair going to leave me with bruises? We feel you so much on that, Sharmila. Crystal CFIT Revolution, how about you? How has lipedema really just affected your everyday life?
First off, I can definitely relate to each and every story that's been said right now. But along with me being a casting director, I've also been an actress for over 20 plus years and an actress and a plus model. And whenever I have to step out in front of people, um, I have to put on a face.
Mhm.
And it's literally what we do with lipedema. We put on a face. And I'm at the point now where I am not able to um, do a lot of the jobs that I was doing before. I used to be able to do uh, full shoots where you could see from head to toe things that I would wear because I could stand up for long periods of time and I could move for long periods of time. And I can't do that anymore. I know that with some of the jobs that I do today, it involves me working with really big clients, and that involves me being on my feet for hours at a time. And I put on a smile and I take my medicine to help with pain. But at the end of the day, it is me by myself in this bed crying because I am in so much pain in my knees, my feet, my back because of the weight that is compounded on my body all throughout the day. And it's really a huge wake up call for somebody who has been in fitness for so many years to have to come to the realization that this is not you, but it's you. And I have to talk to myself to help myself understand that I have to love me regardless of my size, because this is strictly a disease. This is not crystal. And to be able to say that and actually believe it is probably one of the biggest challenges ever, because I've always been that third wheel because of my size. Oh, it's the cute girls. We all are going to go to the club. Who's going to be the one that's going to hold the table, or who's going to be the one that's going to hold the coats and the purses? We're going to leave them with Crystal because we know that Crystal's not going to be going out on the dance floor with the guys. When the guys come over to the table, who are they going to talk to? Not Crystal. So I was always that third wheel. And I would put the smile on my face. I would do it in college. I did it out of college. But when I got home, again, in that bed, I'm sitting with me. And I am sitting there crying, not understanding what was wrong with me. Why won't people like me? The guys don't want to talk to me because of my size. They want to talk to my cousin. They want to talk to my best friend, but they didn't want to talk to me. And all of that just, it really took me for a loop. And understanding what lipedema is, it's good to understand and to know that we have these conditions, but it does not change the fact that we still have to go through these things with people, whether it's in the lipedema community, whether it's with your family, whether it's with your friends, or whether it's with strangers walking down the street. And Crystal, I know that you understand being in the entertainment industry, they are very, very critical about the way you look 24/7. And now that I'm older, I'm more confident. And I think that, being in this industry, if you don't have confidence, you really don't have much to go on because they will eat you alive. But because now that I have the confidence that I have, I really don't care what other people think. But just imagine that 21-year-old or that 30-year-old who does not have that kind of confidence, especially being a woman in this industry, and then to double that, being a Black woman in this industry. It is challenging. And again, you can put on the show all day long, smile and look pretty and say cheese. But when you go home and you're by yourself, whether it's in the bathroom, whether it's in the bedroom, whether you have a partner or not, at the end of the day, you are laying by yourself. That person that is laying next to you does not feel that weight. They don't feel what it is that you're going through, that pain that you may have been going through all day long. They don't understand. And then you're trying to actually rationalize in your head, yes, I understand that I have lipedema, but what am I going to do about lipedema? Am I going to have to deal with this the rest of my life? And how am I going to deal with this the rest of my life? All of the positive talking in the world is great, and may help change some things, but it's not going to change that physical like that. And then is it really going to help you emotionally? And I will be honest with you, ladies, it is hurtful day in and day out. And I mean emotionally, I'm hurt by this disease.
Yes.
And I want to be able to overcome that hurt. I want all of us to be able to overcome what this condition has done to us. And prayerfully, we'll be able to do that.
Crystal Willis, how about you?
Oh, my friend lipedema. Um, well, as I mentioned earlier, my lipedema's progressed to lymphedema as well. And so I deal daily with a lot of different struggles, whether I acknowledge them or not. And I think the hardest part for me, aside from, the pain um, or the swelling or the bruising, is so a lot of the inflammatory response that our body tends to have, what I'm realizing affects me is also with mental health issues is like the brain fog, the a little bit of attention deficit, like when I'm, you know, wanting to be very high functioning and efficient, I'm finding myself struggling, or even just having to take those breaks or take those naps or, not being able to function in the same way that I used to with my career. Um, and so much of my career, as I mentioned in the beginning, is physical. Even though being a publicist or marketing strategist, I am in front of a computer a lot. There are many times I need to be out in the field on the go. Um, and we're working long hours when doing a production like an award show or a festival or something like that. We're talking a 10, 12 hour day. And so the recovery part of that is both physically draining and emotionally draining. And that's what I'm dealing with right now. We just had BET Awards in Los Angeles. I was out there for a week. I was out every day. Um, and so now I'm like finding a balance between being patient with my body and like, no, you got to keep going. You got to work. Like you can't stop, but I have to stop. And then your body will make you stop at a certain point. But, and I'm going to come back to that because there's a point that I really want to make around grace. grace for ourselves, and striking that balance between self-blame, which we often grew up with, and I think is a side effect of being misdiagnosed or unheard, and taking accountability for our own healing, therapy, fitness, all of those things. There's a balance. Um, but mentally, I've struggled with this illness since puberty, and it used to be very dark. And I want to acknowledge Karina's share earlier and how vulnerable that was, um, with her attempt. I've also had an attempt. Um, I've also had a lot of ideation and thoughts of hurting myself. And my thoughts used to look like being in the bathtub, wishing I could, take a sharp edge to my legs and just get rid of them. Um, Not back before I even knew what lipedema was. And so I'm so grateful for the community, the support, the doctors, and just growth and accountability that's allowed me to have a more stable point of view and have grace and compassion for my legs. Like I said, to love my legs after a diagnosis. And that's part of the title of my ebook. So for me, it's just about the balance between self-blame and accountability, giving my body what it needs when it needs it, listening to my body. If I need rest, to give it rest. I was at Target, for example, yesterday, and after a week on my feet and drinking or all the things that being out in Los Angeles for a week during an awards week entails, I was tired. And I literally had a debate with myself about whether I should use the cart in Target to drive myself around the aisles because I didn't want to steal the cart where somebody else might use it, or maybe my pain wasn't as bad and I didn't, invalidating my own need for the cart. And I chose to give myself the cart. I chose to shop with the scooter at Target because I needed it. And so like giving myself permission to not be okay sometimes, you know, um, to listen to my body, to say no when I need a day of rest. And also like struggling through limitations, right? We have all these physical limitations that can then really affect our mindset limitations. And so I've been really stretching myself to do things that I've always wanted to do, beyond getting in a swimsuit and laying by the pool. I wanted to do yoga. So I started a yoga practice a year ago and found out that thanks to my flexible EDS hypermobility, I'm pretty darn good at yoga, actually. Um, and it's helping to keep me loose and stretched out, and I love it. I feel like it helps reduce my pain on some levels and feel more present in my body. So I encourage everyone to try the things that they feel are limitations for them, if it's going to bring them joy, whether that's dancing or yoga or hiking or swimming. The pressure to maintain your weight or work on yourself also gets to be enjoyable and fun. So yes, I love going to the gym. I push myself to maintain my weight so that my illness doesn't progress, but I try to also keep it fun and honor my feelings now. So yeah, just hang in there. You've got this. Like keep it light, keep it fun, but also honor your journey and where you're at, and don't make it bad or wrong.
And Karina, I know you already touched on some of this during your introduction, but what would you add to this about how lipedema has really affected your daily life?
But I think, like many of us, I don't just have lipedema.
Yeah.
I have ADHD, hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos. A lot of us also have the comorbidities that go along with that. So it's it's a lot. Some days are always better than others. The one good thing, I'm just gonna put this one out there. I am probably never gonna break a hip because if I fall down, I've got built-in hip protectors. So like when you have those little frail old ladies at the nursing homes, they put like hip protectors. They got these big cushions on them. They're like spandex, and it's to protect their hips from breaking. I'll probably never need those. So that's the one good thing. I got a built-in cushion if I fall, and I'm very good at falling because I have done it a lot. Um, and I think that a lot of that comes with the laxicity of my joints because of the hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos. I'd always been terrified. I have lived in fear for a very long time of having lymphedema and having cardiovascular issues and becoming diabetic that was all wrapped around my weight. Um, because I figured I was never going to retire. I wasn't something that was going to be on my radar because I'm like, I'm going to die before then because I'm going to have one of these terrible things happen to me. Now, knowing that lipedema, we're usually pretty metabolically healthy, and those typically aren't factors, um, I'm living life a little bit differently and embracing kind of who I am and not apologizing for it, like I used to. I used to hide, shrink away, not participate, not do things because I didn't want to be judged. And some of that, I think it comes with maturity, and getting older. And some of it comes, I just got to a point, I don't care. I don't care anymore. And if you want to make a comment, go for it because I got a comment right back for you. And I think it's just getting to that better space in my head where I can stop judging myself as much.
The title of this panel is The Real Weight of Lipedema and Lifting the Stigma Through Stories. Every one of you have shared deeply personal insights that had nothing to do with a number on a scale. It had nothing to do with the size of clothing that you wear. It had nothing to do with you wanting to take better pictures for Instagram. What I really hope that the people that watch these interviews realize, whether they are patients experiencing this and you're validating their experiences, or whether they're clinicians who have been having these biases happening without even realizing that it's coming out for their patients. The weight of lipedema goes so far beyond a number on a scale or a size of clothing, and your worth is not defined by those numbers. I am so deeply inspired by every single one of you, by the things that you have done to turn around, which is it's a really heavy condition. And I'm not talking about the weight of lipedema because it is heavy and it is uncomfortable. There are deep emotional implications, there are deep physical implications to your everyday life. And I think each of you have so beautifully articulated those for us. And I just appreciate your transparency and willingness to be so vulnerable so that other people can learn. And you've done a fabulous job. I can't believe we're almost out of time, but we are going to wrap up. And if you had just one thing that you could say to someone who is either newly diagnosed or who might suspect in the back of their mind they might have lipedema, I want to know what your advice to them would be. So, Sharmila, I'm going to start with you.
I would actually piggyback off of what Anna said earlier about choosing providers like you're dating. That would probably be what I would go with. And I will tell people that I come across, I mean, go in there prepared to interview them. Medical, like I think the disconnection for us is, oh, I'm paying insurance and this, but they're actually, this medicine is a service-based business. They are being paid to provide a service. I change PCPs. I listen. I would be like, oh, you're not a good fit. And I would look for a new PCP. Oh, you're not a good fit. I would look for a different cardiologist. That more than anything, because your mental and emotional health and all of that is tied up in the provider that's with you on this journey that kind of kicks the journey off. Go in there with a notebook, take notes, read reviews on people, and go in there prepared to advocate for yourself. Like, don't go in there like a nervous animal. You know what I mean? But go in there almost like an attorney preparing for court, because with many providers, because of the lack of understanding, you have to be prepared to defend yourself and articulate yourself in a healthy way. But change providers as often as you absolutely need to in order to get the help that you need.
Excellent, excellent advice, Sharmila. Thank you. Crystal, CFIT Revolution, what would you tell someone newly diagnosed?
The first thing I would tell them is they are not alone. Uh, we have a whole community now, and what I love is the fact that we're kind of the trailblazers for this, because even though Lipedema Foundation has been here for a minute, getting in front of these doctors, really building this community and spreading the word on social media has really been hitting heavy the past couple of years. So understand that you are not alone on this journey, that we are going through this together, and that we need to stay together and uplift each other, and know that we're not going to sit down. The doctors are not going to sit down that are on our side to find a cure. to help us, to let us know that one of these days we're going to be able to comfortably be in our skin and not have to worry about this condition anymore. So we have to stand together and appreciate who we are as an individual, but also appreciate who we are as a lipedema community.
Perfectly stated. Karina, how about you?
Um, if you're newly diagnosed, it's incredibly overwhelming. Um, I am lucky if I can find 10 minutes in the day to just calm myself when you work full time and you have a family and pets and you're taking care of everything. And a lot of us in those mom roles and single parents, like, good luck finding 5 minutes. How many of us are in the bathroom and there's a paw or a kid and you're hearing you being beckoned? Um, there's a wonderful Venn diagram of all of the basically a treatment modality menu that at first I looked at and went, I need a job just to do this. Like, I can't. And I got some very good advice from somebody wearing a striped shirt on this panel. Wink, wink. It's a menu. Pick something. Just pick something and be consistent with it. And that helped my headspace so much. So thank you. And that's what I would recommend is pick something that brings you some joy, that's actually taking care of you, and do it consistently.
Absolutely. Crystal, how about you?
Thank you, Casey. Yeah, if you're hearing the word lipedema for the first time or you're newly diagnosed and feeling overwhelmed, my advice would be to take a deep breath. And I've been where you are. I know that Google search bar can become a black hole of fear and confusion. But let me tell you something that you won't hear enough is this is not a death sentence. You are not broken. It's just a turning point. You're not alone. And you don't have to figure it out in isolation. The most powerful thing you can do right now is to not catastrophize. Just connect. Connect to support, to knowledge, but most importantly, connect to yourself. Recognize that you finally have an answer now, and you can find a healthy balance. You can find joy in the midst of this challenging chronic hereditary condition. We all live with it, but just start building your tribe. Find your people, lean into community. Some of us are really obsessed with fitness. Some of us are really obsessed with the medical thing. Some of us love fashion. Find your people. I love that there's all of these subsets of the lipedema community now that you can get into. Um, so I would just say there's so much healing and being seen, being heard, being held by other women who get it. We laugh together, we cry together, we swap tips, we celebrate wins, and just remind each other that we're not defined by our diagnosis. So please just be gentle with yourself. That would be my biggest piece of advice. Don't let the fear steal your joy. Your body is not your enemy, but it's just asking for attention. And now you know what kind of attention to give it. Now you're listening. So you're welcome. That's the last thing. You're welcome. You're loved. You're absolutely stunning. And if anything, that's what I want women who read my blog with Lady Fab or come visit me is to know that they are fabulous. They're beautiful. Um, and they'll be able to find that spark again. And so, yeah, if anyone's in need of encouragement or just to be reminded of how magical and beautiful and fabulous they are, just come to my page at Lip Lady Fab. That's it. Connect with me. Yeah, I'm here for you.
And Anna, how about you? You're muted.
Of course I am. So many really amazing things have already been said, some of which I would also say, but I think since they've been said, I'm going to say something different that's a little bit more honest and practical and something I haven't heard us bring up a lot yet. And I think it's important to know on the journey, which is you are the only expert on your body. You're the only person that knows how you feel. And unfortunately, there is no magical relief that every single person gets from any treatment. So the best thing you can do over the next however long as you kind of figure out how this lives in your life is to try to listen to yourself, because people are going to suggest so many things and it is going to get overwhelming and it is going to feel like too much. But learning what actually works for you versus what people think might work for you is going to be your most successful tool for success, because you can't do everything, but you can do maybe 2 to 3 things that work best for you. And I think that that is the hardest part of this journey. And so the diagnosis is, to me, the first step in starting that process. And it is trial and error. And it is sometimes things are going to work and sometimes things aren't going to work. That doesn't make you a bad person. That doesn't mean you're not managing your condition. It just means you don't know what you're doing yet. And how could you? You just got diagnosed. So give yourself grace to figure it out, but also know that you're going to have to figure it out. There's no magical rule book that makes everything a little bit easier because our bodies aren't the same. And I think as lipedema patients, all of us are going to react a little bit different to different things. Like for me, MLD is a magical thing that magically, like I move water so quickly in it. Other people hate it. Other people hate the way it feels. They think it's painful. They would prefer to do a vibration plate or something else. Find what works for you and listen to yourself really about whether those things work for you. So that's why I always hate recommending things, because I was like, girl, you're not going to know until you know what works for you. And nobody else can tell you that because nobody else is you.
Incredible advice. And Karina, what you referenced was the treating lipedema guide that we have on lipedema.org. And I do consider it a playlist. I love every kind of music in the world, but I don't always want to listen to one kind of music. So sometimes I'll select 2 or 3 songs I really like that aren't related. That is kind of how I approach my lipedema care, because some days I do want to use the vibration plate, and other days it's not comfortable and I'm not going to do it. And I think giving yourself the grace every single day to figure out, what can I do today? Let's go back to Patty Cornute's theme of all or something. You can't do it all every day, so you pick something. And that is such timeless advice that I think will continue to make a difference through our community. Finally, I just want to mention again, June is Lipedema Awareness Month, but our awareness does not need to stop in June. We need to all keep on talking. As each of these incredible folks have here on the screen, there are at least 5 accounts you have right now to follow for people that are very inspirational and are putting great information out in the world. I deeply encourage anyone in this community, at your own comfort level, share your story. Don't be afraid to tell other people what's happening in your body, because it normalizes it and validates it for others. And finally, if there is anything that we at Lipedema Foundation can do to support you, there is an area on our website where you can sign up for our newsletter to stay in touch, and you can contact us. You can get those brochures, clinician guides, and plenty of other resources. We want for you to use those. They are free, and we want for people to be distributing those in the community and helping us continue to build awareness. So with that, I just want to thank each and every one of you for taking time out of your day to help our community and to help lift the stigma through your stories. Thank you all so much for your time and for adding to the value today.